Hello and welcome to Wednesday Live with Evie number 22, and today's topic is creating more time. So I am Evie Burke. I help entrepreneurs just like you take productivity to a new level, and today's topic is kind of a fun one. So I have a bunch of notes, so if you see me looking down, that's what I'm looking at. I had a little bit of fun drafting this topic out today. Well, I drafted it out earlier this week. So before we get started, I would love to know what your motivation is for coming. What's on your when I have more time list, and what would it take for you to make more time? What would need to change? So think about the answers to those questions. If you feel comfortable sharing them, share them in the comments below. I would love to know. So now as we're waiting for more people to join us, I see we have a couple of people here now. Welcome. I just want to share with you, if you haven't already, headed over to my website, oneinsightcloser.com, and gotten your freebie. I highly suggest you do that. The freebie is how to choose priorities when everything is important. If you are an entrepreneur, I am sure that you have felt overwhelmed and just like there's so much to do and not enough time. What this will do is it'll give you a way to get all of those things out of your head onto a piece of paper, and it gives you a really great way to look at how to organize it, how to tell the difference between the things that you want to get done because maybe they're quick and easy, and the things that will grow your business that might be a little more challenging, that might put you up against your comfort zone. So maybe you put those off or procrastinate around those. It'll highlight the difference between those two very clearly. So head over there and grab that. And number two, if you are not already a member of the Facebook group, Productivity for Women Entrepreneurs, I would love to have you there. It's, like I said, Productivity for Women Entrepreneurs. It's a great community that's over there. I would love to have you join us. So head over there and request to join. And if I don't know you, look in your Facebook messages, because I'll just reach out to you and say hi, just to make sure that you're not somebody who's going to spam us. I've had really great luck with not having spammy people join us, and I want to continue that. And I know you're not a spammy type person, or you wouldn't be here on this video. So just look in your messages if you do request to join. All right. So again, the question that I have for you all today is, what's on your when I have more time list? And what would it take to make more time? What would you need to change? And I really want you to think about those questions. And even if you don't share them in the comments below, I want you to think about what those things are for you. What are the things you find yourself saying? When I have more time, I will What are those things? So the reason I asked that question particularly is, okay, so Jennifer says personal reading. When you have more time, you'll do more personal reading. So I ask these questions because when you're working on creating more time, it's really important to know what you're creating more time for. What are those things that you want to be doing that maybe you're not doing right now? What are those things that you say, I'll do later, I'll do them when I have more time? What are the things that you say, I just don't have time for that right now? And you're not saying it in a, I don't want to do it, so I'm just going to say I don't have time for it, but you legitimately wish you did have time for, and it maybe hurts a little bit, or you say I don't have time for it with a little twinge. So know what those are. Know what you're creating more time for. And think about, why do you want those things? What are they going to do for you? So Jennifer, for you, personal reading. Like what is it about personal reading that lights you up? Why do you look forward to that? Why do you want to create more time for doing personal reading? So, for example, if somebody's task was, or the thing somebody wanted to do was spend more time in nature, if that was a thing they wanted to create more time for, they might want to look at, well, why do they want to spend more time in nature? Is it because they love nature? Is it because it's grounding for them? Or is it something that's a should? Is it something that they feel like they should be doing? They should be walking more. They should be doing things outside more. And so you say, I'll do that when I have more time, but it's something you feel like you should be doing and not something that you want to be doing. So really look at it. Is it really something that you want to be doing, or is it something you feel like you should be doing? And Jennifer says she loves reading because it disconnects her from her duties. So yeah, it gives you some downtime. So that's a great one. And it inspires you. Great. Yeah, some of those things like personal reading for me, walking outdoors, they're the things that refill us. You know, last week we were talking about creating space. And so it's those things that refill the creative well, right? Those can be things sometimes that we put off. So, but we want to spend time doing those. We want to make sure that when we're creating time, you know, we're doing some of those activities. So the next question here is, what would it take for you to make more time? What would need to change? So think about that. And you can answer it below if you want. If you just want to think about it, you can do that. But what would it take for you to make more time? What would need to change? So sometimes it might be things like tweaking our work schedule. Sometimes it might be creating, well, we'll talk about that in a little bit later, but think about what was the first thing that popped in your mind when I said, you know, what would it take for you to make more time? What would need to change? What were those first like gut reactions that popped into your mind outside of an act of God or a miracle or things like that? What was that first thought that popped in your mind? Was it something like make more time for it, put it on my schedule? Was it something else, like maybe say no or stop doing this other thing? Which brings us to the next part. But before I start into the next section, okay, so people are saying focus, clearing out the noise in our heads. Yes, that would be something that will help us make time, that will help us do those things that we say, when I have more time, I'll. Jennifer says truly commit herself. So yeah, sometimes there are things that we want to do, but we're not actually taking the time. Yeah, Jennifer agrees with Ellen too about focus and cleaning out the noise in her head. So before we go into the next section, the kind of how-to, really have an idea about the questions we've already asked. If you're watching the recording, maybe hit pause and go back and watch it again and jot down those answers for yourself. So now on to the how-to. So what are the things, you know, for the actual how to create more time, what are the things that you're doing right now that you don't want to do anymore, or maybe the time to pass them on has come? Okay? So these might be things that you feel like you should do, but you're really not committed to. I know that this was probably 4 or 5 years ago. I was part of an organization that there was a lot of changes that I wanted to make. There's a lot of things I wanted to do, but there wasn't the energy behind it to support me in those changes. And I didn't have the time and the effort to put into it to make those changes and to make those things happen. And so I realized that I needed to step down, that somebody who was more aligned with where they were right now was going to be a better fit to lead that group, and they wouldn't drive me crazy then, and I wouldn't drive them crazy. So I stepped down. And In the past, I served 3 years on a board for an organization, and they asked me to come back for a fourth, and I really felt like it was time for somebody else to come in. It was time for them to have some new and different ideas. I was kind of burnt out, and it was time for me to move on. And it wasn't that for either of those organizations that I didn't want to support them or that I didn't think they were great organizations. It was just the time for me to move on had come. And sometimes I think, especially as women, we feel so much responsibility for organizations that we're a part of or responsibilities that we have that it's really hard to let them go, because no one's going to do it the way that I did it. No one's going to do it right, and I did it right, and this is the way they need to do it. And even with the organization that I most recently left, as I'd see things come through that I used to be in charge of, I'd go, oh, well, I wouldn't do it that way. And after a couple of times, I was like, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. It's getting done, and it's great that they're doing it in a way that works for them. So anyway, what are the things that you're doing now that maybe you don't need to be doing, or it's time to pass on to somebody else? It's time to say no to. The other side of this is sometimes, how do you say no to things that pop up that aren't a good fit? Sometimes it's really hard for us to say no. So I just want to go over quickly ways to say no, whether it's things that you are currently doing that you need to pass on to somebody else or stop doing, or whether it's a new request from somebody that's come through that's just not a good fit for you and you want to say no. So the first thing here is be brief. You don't have to give 5 minutes of explanation about why it's not a good fit anymore or why you don't want to do it. Just be brief, be to the point. It's not a right fit anymore. It no longer works for my schedule. It's time for somebody else to do this. Just be brief, be to the point. Point 2, be honest. Don't make stuff up. Don't blame it on somebody else. Just share what you need to share. Also, the thing that our moms told us, tell the truth. It's easier to keep track of truth than a bunch of lies, that kind of thing. Just be very upfront about what's happening for you. Point 3, say no. Don't say things like, I think that I'm not interested in this right now, or right now this isn't a good fit for me, things like that. Be clear, because when you say things like I think that, or I feel that, or right now, you're telling the person, maybe not intentionally, but you're telling the person, hey, if we come back maybe in a couple of months or in a year or a week, maybe the answer will be different. So be very clear about the fact that it's just no. And the fourth tip here is repeat as needed. And I love what Ellen shared here, that the Oprah line from decades ago is, no is a full sentence. You don't know anybody any more than that. No thanks, can't do it. Yes, Ellen, you're absolutely right. No is a complete sentence. So if somebody asks you for something and it's not a good fit, saying no is completely a full sentence. A personal story, I realized that I have made great strides in my ability to say no a couple of months ago when somebody was, I don't remember exactly what the conversation was, but our senior pastor had asked me or suggested something to me maybe like a year or so ago. And I told her, you know what, I don't think that's a good fit for me. I'm not interested in doing that. She's like, okay, well, think about it. And I said, okay, I can think about it, but, the answer is going to be no. And she's like, oh, okay, well, just think about it. And I was talking about it with somebody else, and the other person said, oh, I just can't say no to her. How did you do that? And I was thinking, it wasn't that hard. I just said no. You know, so sometimes we make things more difficult, and it's saying no is a muscle sometimes that we need to develop. But the good news is you can develop it. It does develop, and I know some of us have a harder time developing that muscle than others. So if you're at a point where it's a muscle you need to develop, know that there is hope for you. All right. So going back to the how to create more time, the other thing to look at is what can you streamline? Excuse me, what can you create systems around? So I did a Facebook Live on creating systems maybe a month or so ago. It was number 9, Wednesday Live with Evie number 9. So go ahead and take a look at that. You know, what are the things that if you could have, you know, if you put all the steps down, would make it just go a lot easier if you put a system around it so you're not reinventing the wheel every time. And then another thing to do that will create more time is know your goals. Know what you're working toward each week and each day, and be very clear about it. You know, have your to-do list on a piece of paper. I have mine, and work off of that to-do list each day. Don't put so much on it that it is overwhelming. Just look at today's task today, because a lot of times if we're looking at the week's tasks or, you know, everything we have to get done, it gets really overwhelming, and then we find other things to do, and then nothing gets done. So be very clear about what your goals are and know what your tasks are. So going into the details of how to cover each one is something that we just don't have time for today. That would take a lot of extra time to go through it in the detail that I like to go through things in. So what I would like to do here, though, is share with you a way to really get this down for yourself. So I have a program coming up. It starts in the middle of June, and it's called Take Your Productivity to a New Level, and it's a 4-week productivity mastery course. And you can find it over at oneinsightcloser.com/TPNL. And there's a very detailed sales page that might be pared down a little bit over the next couple of days. But the details of the program stay the same. What you get stays the same. And the investment rises on June 5th. So if you're somebody who wants to create more time, who wants to know what is on your plate and have very clear goals and know how to work toward them, this is a really great opportunity to join us. I'm not going to spend like 5 minutes on it because that's not what these Facebook Lives are about. You can head over there and you can take a look at it. If you have any questions about it or just want to talk to me about it, you know, send me a private message or give me a call or email me, however you want to get a hold of me, and I'm happy to talk with you about it. So, yeah, I would love to have you in that program, though, if it's a good fit for you. It's, again, Take Your Productivity to a New Level. So, now, I would love to know what questions you guys have. If you have any questions on anything we covered, and I know there's a little bit of a delay here, so while you're thinking about or you're typing out your questions, I just want to give a quick review of what we covered today, because I went through it pretty quick and there was a lot there. So, the first thing is know what you're creating more time for. The second, why do you want those things? What will they or do they do for you? 3, what would it take for you to make more time? What would need to change? And 4, the how-to. So the first part there is what are the things you're doing now that you don't need to be? The second part is what can you streamline or create systems around? And the third is know your goals. Be clear on how you're achieving them and what your tasks are each day. So this one was really kind of a how-to. There was a lot of detail there. So if you have any questions now or later, you know, feel free to come by and post them in the comments below. And I would love to know, as you think of it, what are other things that you want to create more time for? What are those things? What do you look forward to doing when you have more time? So I hope I gave you some things to think about. I'd love to know too what your biggest takeaway was from today's Facebook Live. So that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for joining me. My name's Evie Burke. I work with entrepreneurs just like you, and I help them take their productivity to a new level. And I hope you have an absolutely fabulous week. Until next week, much love. Bye.